Welcome back to the application testing course. In this video we will see how we can leverage Studio Pro for API testing. This is also a way to test early during application development. More specifically, as soon as the microservices or the API are created, we can start the API testing with the set of features of UiPath Studio Pro. The UiBank web application has an application programming interface available at this address, as well as a Swagger file. We can directly use both for testing and, of course, for test automation. This is the UiBank API, and this is the Swagger file with all the endpoints. Let's see what we can do with it in Studio Pro. We'll copy the Swagger file URL. And in Studio Pro, we have the service editor accessible through this new service button. Here, we just need to paste the Swagger file link and hit load. This will load all the endpoints of the Swagger file. We can select just the ones we are interested in, but let's keep all for now. We'll give a meaningful name and save. This will create activities for each endpoint in the Swagger file. These become available in the Activities panel in a section with the name we've chosen. Here they are. And from here, it's like using any other activity in our projects. UiPath Test Suite also comes with out-of-the-box Postman integration. If the development team has already created the Postman collections, we can directly use the Postman API key to import those collections. So let's go to Postman and regenerate the API key. We will use this API key to load the collections in Studio Pro. It goes pretty much like before. We'll go to the New Service section and input the API key. Then click Load. These are the different collections, as well as the different endpoints available to us. Once again, we'll give it a name, then save. And the endpoints will be added as activities in the panel, from where we can drag and drop them in our projects. Alright, now let's put some of these activities to work. We have an empty test case created here. What we want to test is the applied alone functionality at the API level. So we have an empty sequence with the given, when, and then sections. We'll add the quote new quote activity created from the Swagger API in the when block. This activity processes a loan request and returns the interest rate if the request is approved. It has age, amount, email, income, and term as inputs. They're here in the request section in the properties panel. Okay, let's input the data in each of the fields. And let's store the output of the activity in a new variable. We'll create it right here. Using Ctrl+K, the last thing we need in the activity is the API endpoint. It's the address in the browser in our case. We'll paste it here. That's it for the when block. Basically, the part that we are executing. But this is a test case, so we need to perform verifications. Let's add a verify expression with operator. We will first check if the loan was approved. We'll need to output variable here, so let's change its scope to all our test case. Like this, then we'll add it on the left. Use the accepted method, which will return a true or false value. We'll keep the equal sign and input true on the right. Next, let's have the test case check the loan rate. We'll drag another verify expression with operator activity, add the same variable, but this time use rate. The output of this needs to be equal to a static value, 7. We're now ready to run this. As you can see in the output panel, both verifications have passed. The loan was accepted, and the loan rate is indeed 7. Great. We can even make testing more effective with a data-driven test case using the same logic. We can convert this one by right-clicking it and selecting Add Test Data, then choosing the data variation file. You've seen it earlier. It works the same for all basic test cases. Let's quickly take a look at the data variation file. We have a couple of scenarios here. The first column tells us whether we're dealing with a positive scenario, in which the loan is approved, or with a negative one. We then have the name and description for each scenario. Then the hard data, age, amount, email, income, and term. These correspond to the input values in the activity. No surprise here. The next two columns contain the outcome, the status, and, for the approved ones, the rate. Finally, we have the output message and then details for the rejected ones. So, this is our test data sheet. We will use it to perform our data-driven test case. The test case we will be using is already here. It borrows the logic from the previous one, but instead of static values, it uses the arguments imported from the columns in the variation file. Some of them need to be parsed to integer, so we're using the int32.parse method. In the then block, we still perform two verifications. The first one is about the approval status. Then we use an effectivity so that the check of the loan rate is performed only if the loan is approved. The condition is based on the verify loan accepted column in the variation file. That's it. Let's see this in action. We'll run it with data variations and select all of them. Okay, we're seeing the output panel populated with the execution outcomes. The first test case is passed for both verifications. The next two test cases result in rejected loans, so the second verification is not performed. Finally, the last test case is passed for both. We're at the end of our demo on the API testing capabilities of UiPath Test Suite. We've seen the two ways of importing services in Studio Pro, using the Postman integration and the Swagger file. Then we had the two types of test cases using API. There are still many things to test before our application becomes a reality, so stay tuned.